Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining. We are Biscuits and SEC Live. This is our 28th show. I am Hammer. That is Bossman. We got an exciting show for you tonight. We're going to touch on the snip, snap QB swap between UCLA and Tennessee. Some other NIL and Iamaleava family drama going on at Arkansas. And then touch on baseball as well. So once again, thanks for tuning in. We're here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. As you see below, we write a weekly newsletter. We would appreciate it if you guys would consider signing up or sign up. And if you hate it, then unsubscribe. It's free. And we send it out every Wednesday during the off season, and then twice a week during the season on Mondays and Fridays. So would appreciate the love there, as well as on this video, and then all of our social channels, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, etc. We're just trying to grow those. So if you like what we do, please show us some love that way. All right. Bossman, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. A lot going on, even in the fallout from everything with Nico. And now we've got stuff going on with his brother, with Arkansas and UCLA. We got tons of stuff going on in SEC baseball. We're deep in the heart of the season. So lots to talk about tonight. It's going to be a fun show.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we might as well just hop right into it with we can run with Tennessee again. So the second week in a row, the Vols will be leading the show. So if you missed our show last week, I would recommend giving it a watch, because we're not going to dive really much into the Nico stuff this week, but we almost spent a full hour on it last week, just giving our thoughts on that situation, as well as, what this means for the broader sort of landscape of college football. So speaking of Tennessee, though, Nico obviously goes to UCLA. He's gone. But now the Vols have found, I guess, their new QB. I mean, we'll see if there's a real competition or if it's Joey Aguilar's, job. But in case you missed it, Joey Aguilar, former App State quarterback, spent a couple years in Boone, and then after the season in 2024, during the winter portal, transferred to UCLA, and then subsequently transferred to Tennessee once Nico arrived, or transferred. I don't know if he's arrived yet. I think they actually have to finish out the semester. But once Nico transferred to UCLA, Aguilar left, entered the portal, and then was quickly rumored to go to Tennessee, and it's worked out that way. So what are your initial thoughts here? I mean, you can kind of go specifically to Aguilar, or just big picture again of like, this is insane. Kind of what are we doing here? We just traded quarterbacks at the end of April.
I don't know if the Wild West is even the right or an apt description at this point anymore. This is just total mayhem and chaos. And I think really, when you get down to it here, truth be told, I think Tennessee probably struck out behind the scenes with others, and there was a couple of reports out there that, some quarterbacks who were power 4 starters were getting raises because Tennessee was after them. So I think Tennessee kind of struck out on that side of it, first of all. And then second, so I think Aguilar, ended up kind of being one of the choices that was in the portal. And it's also reported, I saw today, that it's going to be 7 figures less than what Nico got. So we're talking about in the $1 million range, I think.
So on that, sorry to cut you off. So I actually saw a report that, yes, he was scheduled to make somewhere around 1.1, 1.2-ish with UCLA. So the going theory would be it's somewhere around there, but possibly even less, because obviously he didn't have any leverage by the time he hit the portal. So who knows what Tennessee ended up giving him, but I would suspect roughly $1 million.
I would suspect around that too, which honestly is crazy. And we can get into that in just a second in terms of his stats, because I'm just surprised that we're talking about a kid. He had some decent stats. It wasn't like he was terrible. But for, a quarterback like that, going for $1 million right now is crazy to me.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing, whether you brought it up or maybe perhaps later, but I thought the same thing. I mean, he was a good G5 quarterback at App State, put up pretty good numbers. We can actually might as well put these up now.
Yeah.
His stats last season, he actually had a better year in 2024. I maybe should have, or excuse me, 2023. I maybe should have put that up. But slightly. I think he threw for 3,700 yards, like 30 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. So this past year, he was a little bit threw for about 700 less yards than the prior year, and obviously had a few more picks with a little bit less touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, look at the stats. Like it's a good season, but I'm with you. I don't look at that and think $1 million, a guy. But on that same token, I think it's something we're going to have to get used to, because look at the NFL. Dak Prescott makes $60 million. I mean, when you're looking at, in the grand scheme of things, right, however much your roster is, the quarterback's going to account for a hefty chunk of that, even if he's not Arch Manning, or I don't even know why I said that because he hasn't played, but who's the best, a Garrett Nussmeier, somebody who's well thought of, a Drew Aller at State,
Yeah.
Somebody who is like, a stud, or, in the NFL, your Mahomes or Josh Allen or whatever. Like, even if they're not that, they're still going to get paid. And that's just sort of the lesson I took here, because it's one thing for Tennessee to pay a dude this much money, but UCLA was paying him that, right? Like UCLA, who I don't think has that much money in terms of, NIL budget relative to maybe an SEC or Big Ten school. So I think that's just the market, which is crazy because, right, it makes you actually believe some of the stuff that was coming out about Ewers or any of the other guys. It's like, oh, you could get $5 to $6 mil.
For sure. To me, though, too, like this sets up now a very interesting battle going into the season, right? Going into the fall camp, because you got Jake Merklinger, who, has been there for a little bit. He's been in the offense. He knows Josh Heupel's offense. There's probably a lot of trust there, right? Tennessee fans have a generally good opinion of Merklinger right now. And now you've got a kid coming in who is $1 million arm. I don't know what they're paying Merklinger, but I would be surprised if it's $1 million. And if it's not $1 million, if I'm Merklinger, you haven't put any stats on the board. So how much leverage do you really have? But at the end of the day, like, this guy's getting $1 million. Like, man, I guess he does have 2 years of experience. But it will be interesting going into fall camp, because now you've got this kid, $1 million arm. Like, you don't pay somebody $1 million not to play. However, you still got to put the best kid on the field who's going to help you win games. And he's going to have a very short amount of time, which we've talked about before. We talked about it last week with Nico, and we talked about it before with other quarterbacks. That's just how it is in this transfer portal era, where if these kids are going to transfer in the spring and come in and, be your starter in the fall, if that's what your plan is, they better learn the offense really quick. They better live and die and breathe, right? Live, eat, breathe, drink, all of it. The film room, they better be, immersed in the playbook, off of social media, like all that, because it's very difficult to go into a new program, set the tone, also create relationships, create the respect that it takes to become a leader, which the QB is expected to be a leader. And I think this kid has, fairly good leadership qualities from what I've heard. But even still, short amount of time to try to figure things out. And then it goes back to the coaches too, right? I don't think Josh Heupel's offense is super complicated. He's very smart with his play calls, and he's got a great playbook. But, is it the most complicated offense? Is it a Jimbo Fisher offense? Is it a very old school style offense, pro style offense that has a lot of different concepts and plays and tree routes and all that sort of thing? No, not necessarily. So, but at the same time, again, shortened time frame. And so if you're Josh Heupel, do you have to dumb down the playbook if, just a little bit? And especially too, right, if Aguilar's going to be the guy, say in game one, okay, we name him the starter right out of fall camp. Something to watch for Tennessee fans and fans across college football. First couple games, right? We could see something like we saw at South Carolina last year with Lenora Sellers coming in, right? And he had been in the program, but they almost lose to Old Dominion right off the clip. And so I think there could be some growing pains in those first couple of games before Aguilar finally gets his feet under him. And it could be the same with Merklinger, right? Even the same. He doesn't have a lot of experience. So to tie that up in a bow, I don't think that Tennessee's in a better position than they were when they had Nico. And I don't think they made the wrong decision. I think that Josh Heupel, I think, really had to kind of step up and stick his foot in the ground and say enough is enough. We're done dealing with this. And at the end of the day, that can be a problem in the locker room, right? You've got a diva in the locker room. It kind of loses respect in terms of the leadership, especially when your stats and everything was kind of shaky, as we mentioned last week. But we all know Nico's ceiling, and Nico's ceiling truly is way higher than what Tennessee now has in the QB room. So I think expectations, frankly, need to be a little bit more tempered than they were when Nico was on the roster 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. A couple good points by our friend Tony here, who's joining in. So first is, on the timing aspect, I think I read this as well, Tony. So thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, Aguilar, because of the academic calendar, can't even actually get to Knoxville until June, because I don't know the correct terminology, but a lot of those Pac-12 schools do it's like the quarters or the trimester thing, right? Where it's not a semester. So they go all the way into June. So he's not even going to get to Knoxville until June. Which again, yeah, I mean, whatever, right? He can hop on Zoom calls and he can study the playbook and do all that stuff. But it is definitely going to be interesting to see how quickly he can pick up the offense. I mean, Nico, was in the system for a year before he started a game. And again, we're not film rats. I don't know exactly what was going on last year, but from the outside looking in, it sure seemed like there were things that Nico was not doing up to the standard of, whether it's reading defenses or just understanding what Heupel was trying to do. It seemed like Heupel was kind of holding back from what he had done, with Hendon Hooker or even at times Joe Milton. So interested to see how Aguilar can do. And then Tony also brings up, guys drop 20 passes. So that is worth bringing up. I don't watch a ton of App State football. Sorry, Austin. We've got one of our brothers' best friends goes to App State, but since they beat A&M, I just I used to actually root for them. I used to like them, the Michigan game, but then they beat A&M, and so I kind of just blacked them out from my memory. But Tony, just to touch on what you're saying there, I don't know that they did, but I can say that his stats went down between 2023 and 2024, but their record also suffered as well. So I think they were 6-6 last year, 5-6 last year compared to the 9-5, because they would have had, that's right. So they only played 11 games because they had to cancel a game due to Hurricane Helene. So 5-6 last year compared to 9-5 the year before. So again, without having seen a snap, or much App State football the last 2 years, I'm going to say that his team probably took a step back in terms of the personnel. You see that all the time at the G5 level. So for them to, go down, I don't think that was because of Aguilar or he all of a sudden, forgot how to play. I think it was probably just a symptom of the broader team was probably not as strong. And that could be evidenced by the fact that maybe they were dropping some passes. I don't think he'll have that issue at Tennessee, but to your point of just the expectations, like even if Aguilar, proves to be as talented of a player as Nico is, just all the circumstances you brought up of like, dude, he's got no time to learn the offense. He's also, coming in there. Everybody knows what his price tag was. I suspect, this is one of those things that you just don't know unless you're on the inside. I suspect most guys know what most guys make on the team, regardless of whether it's a big time transfer or, Nico coming out of high school. So I don't think that'll be too out of the ordinary, but if I was Heupel, this is how I would handle it. I would go to Merklinger and I would say, hey, dude, we're bringing this guy in. Here's the price tag. We're paying him that money because that's what the market is. Not that I think he's better than you, but he's got 2 years of experience. You have not played. This is an open competition, and if you win it, you're going to be taken care of, right? This is University of Tennessee. We will pay you what you deserve to be paid. I can't allocate that right now. And, oh, by the way, you are currently one of 2 scholarship players. So, like, I'm bringing a quarterback in. It just happens to be this guy. He was the best available. But, like, my hands are tied here, dude. I have to bring somebody in, and you'll have every opportunity to beat him out and be our starting quarterback. And when that day comes, you'll get paid, out the wazoo as the starting QB at Tennessee. So, but yeah, that's just like dynamics of any coach now, right? I mean, this is the latest and most high profile story, but every single coach across the country is dealing with this, where they have guys on their roster making whatever they're making, and then they're bringing some dude in the portal, and everybody reads the tea leaves or Twitter about how much this dude they just brought in's making, and they're like, hold on, what? Like, this dude, right? Yeah, like, I just did, whatever I did last year, and, like, I'm only making $250K. Like, what's the deal? So coaches everywhere are dealing with this. How, I really don't know. I think it's a huge pain in the butt, but they have to deal with it. So it just sort of is what it is. And just on that note too, I think you bring up a good point of just like, I don't think they bring a guy in like that to be a backup, but I wouldn't be surprised if Merklinger, just given the circumstances, even if it's just early, and then if like Merklinger's named the starter week 1, and then if he struggles a couple weeks, then yeah, maybe you give Aguilar a chance. But like, Merklinger's talented. He was a 4-star, and he's got a year in the system. Like, it's not going to be easy for Aguilar to just come in there and like immediately within a month of his first practice be solidified. Like, this is the starter. Maybe we even see a 2-quarterback system early on. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, I was going to say that, like, Merklinger to me has a leg up because of his experience in Heupel's system. And I think he's got a lot of the fan base behind him too, to some degree. I think, Vols are excited to see what Aguilar can do as well. But I'd also, let's look at the stats here again, and then we'll compare him to Nico's stats that we showed last week. So 55% completion percentage, decent, nothing, not spectacular. It's okay. 3,000 yards passing, that's pretty good. He's throwing the ball a decent amount. 23 TDs, 14 INTs. That's the kicker right there. 24 INTs in 2 years through 14 last year. That's the thing to be worried about.
Which is something Nico did not do.
That's right. Nico did not. And then his quarterback rating there, 132.9. So he was a little bit better in some areas than Nico was, and a little bit worse. So here's Nico, again, who needed a new start at UCLA. And so he had a much better completion percentage there, 63% there. So 8 points higher than Aguilar's. Threw for less yards, 2,600 yards, and then threw for less TDs as well. We know there were some issues with a lot of overthrown balls. Nico missed a lot of potential touchdowns last year, overthrown receivers.
Yeah.
But he did protect the ball. Only 5 interceptions on the year, and his quarterback rating was pretty good. So, talking with Jeb on SEC After Dark and with other Tennessee fans, while they, hey, look, at the end of the day, Nico got Tennessee to 10-2 and to the playoff in his first year as the starter. So that's something to be excited about. If you dove a little bit deeper into the stats, which we did last week too, with some of the tweets from Connor O'Gara and others, a lot of those touchdowns that he threw came against inferior competition. When it came to SEC play against the best competition, it wasn't so great. However, even looking at those stats, 10-2 gets him to the playoff. You're thinking, all right, this is the year he's going to break through. He's got a first round ceiling, a top 5 pick type of ceiling. And so now, like, this is the year to turn it on. The receiving core, a little bit shaky going into this year, right? Lost a lot from the receiving core last year. But even still, Nico seemed to be, with his talent, the type of player who can, rising tide lifts all boats, right? There are some quarterbacks who just, even with a lower amount of talent around them, and not that Tennessee has a super lower amount of talent around them, they're going to have a lot of talent. I'm just saying that the idea going into the season is that the wide receiving core is going to be a little bit less talented than it was last year. But even with that, right, Nico's talent, people were thinking that he could be the one to elevate everyone else's play around him. So with that not happening now, we'll see. Can Merklinger step up? Is it Aguilar who steps up? It's going to be fascinating to watch because the expectations for this Tennessee team are still very high coming off a playoff year. And I don't think folks are expecting a drop back to an 8-4 type of season. Folks want to see it at 9-3, 10-2 again, pushing for the playoff. So one more thing I would say too on the Merklinger front is if you're going to if you're Josh Heupel, if I'm sitting in Josh Heupel's shoes like you were talking about earlier, if it is Merklinger, if Merklinger does win the job, and okay, hey, I won the job, I'm the starter, like you need to pay me 1.5 or whatever. I think you kind of sit him down and say, let's talk after game 4, right? I'll talk to you after game 4. You got to earn it, son. You earn the starting job. That's great. You got to earn this money, right? We play Syracuse. That's a pretty good football team. That's our first game of the season. Then we play ETSU, and then you got number 5 Georgia.
Yeah.
And then you got UAB, right? So after those 4 games, and then you get Mississippi State after that, who should be a little bit improved, maybe. We'll see, right? But after 4 or 5 games, son, like come talk to me after that, and we'll see where we're at. And, if you're kicking tail and doing great, we'll pay you that 1.5. Don't worry. Like you said, our NIL can handle it.
Yeah. I was going to bring their schedule up as well, just in relation to the potential of a 2-quarterback system. Not to say that they won't go that route, but I'm with you. Syracuse is not a pushover. I don't know what they'll be like this year because they lost I'm blanking on his name, but McCord from Ohio State had a great year there. He's gone. So I know they've lost some guys. They also recently lost a guy in the portal, some receiver. And it was actually interesting. Did you see the Fran Brown press conference about that?
No, actually, I did not.
So they lost some guy in the portal after spring, and then Fran Brown was asked about it, and he just said straight up, he's like, yeah, I didn't want to pay him what he was asking. And he's like, I don't have a problem with him leaving. He's like, I told him good luck, but he came to me and said, hey, I think I'm worth this much. And I said, can't do it. If you think you're worth that much, then like go get it, dude. But it's not going to be here.
Wow.
Regardless, that dude, he's a good coach. Syracuse will be ready for that game. They're definitely not as talented as Tennessee, but that's a game that if you don't have your ducks in a row, you could lose. And then you brought up, East Tennessee, sure, fine, whatever. But week 3, you got Georgia. So they kind of need to have this buttoned up. If not in week 1, certainly by week 3. So very interesting to see how they handle it. And then kind of the last thing on Aguilar to paint a little bit better picture. So we didn't have this made up on a graphic, so forgive us. But his 2023 season, which, by the way, I think was his freshman season. I think he came in and started right away at App. From what I can tell, he was a class of 2023 kid, enrolled early, and, so started his first 2 years in school. But he had a 63% completion percentage his freshman year, 3,700 yards, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So better statistics. I'm with you, though. What really worries me is those interceptions. Even his 33 and 10 is great. Don't get me wrong. But 10 interceptions in the Sun Belt, and you're coming into the SEC, like that's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts there.
Yeah.
So
also,
again,
one more thing.
A lot of potential, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. So a lot of potential. I'm not dogging on the kid at all. There's just some things to watch out for. The INTs, which you mentioned, that's the main one to be concerned about if you're a Tennessee fan. But I'm excited to see how it plays out. One thing to note on the schedule, Syracuse, that first game of the year, that's going to be Ricky Collins starting, former LSU quarterback, former 4-star recruit. So it'll be interesting to see, how he looks as well. And we're going to see a lot of novices, right? Newness for Syracuse and for Tennessee. Whoever starts at quarterback for Tennessee, and then over on the Syracuse side, a lot of talent, right? Kids who were highly recruited, and Aguilar, who's who has jumped up now to a Power 4 team in the SEC, making over $1 million a year. But in the, we haven't seen really either of them. We've seen Aguilar at App State, but in terms of Tennessee and in the SEC, that's a whole different ball game. And if it's Merklinger, we don't know much about him at all. And then Ricky Collins on the other side, a lot of talent, but same thing, we don't know. So that first game it'll be fascinating, right? There's just it could be all over the place in terms of the quarterback play.
Yeah, and one prediction I have, and this is just an annual time-honored college football tradition, but whatever happens in that week 1 game, everyone's going to overreact. So if Aguilar comes out there and lights the world on fire, it's like, boom, Tennessee's a playoff contender. And then 6 weeks down the road, it might turn out that, well, he wasn't as good as we thought, or actually Syracuse kind of it's just one of those things that,
oh yeah,
especially when there's so many unknowns, it's like if it was Nico and Nico had a bad game against Syracuse, but they won, you can be like, okay, like that was weird, but like whatever, week 1, he'll work his way into it. But when you have no background knowledge about any of these guys on either side of the ball, the takes are going to be flying. So I'm excited for that one.
I want to see this comment here. So Rick and Bonnie, Tennessee has beaten Rick and Bonnie are Alabama fans. For those who aren't tuned into the show every week. But so Rick, Tennessee has beat us 2 years in a row. A third will be a disaster. Is that a fireable offense for Kalen DeBoer? losing 2 in a row to Tennessee? I don't think it is. But yeah, that would be a big deal. If Tennessee beats Alabama, another year, it'll be rough. So
well, they beat them. Was it every single year Saban was there? It was like 15 or 16 years in a row until that 2020,
the final,
2022 game or whatever.
I think it was, what is it, 3 out of 4? I think because they lost, right, the 52-49 crazy game in Neyland Stadium, but then the next year Tennessee lost. So I think it would be 3 out of 4. But anyway, that would be bad because it was 15 straight years under Saban that Alabama beat Tennessee. So
well, good stuff. I think we've gone long enough on the Tennessee saga 2 weeks in a row. So let's move along to the other Iamaleava, who is also Iamaleavin, and he is leaving Arkansas. So this is not nearly as big of a storyline for the player, but just sort of the echoes that have come from it. So to catch you up here, right, if you're not following along, which is totally fine because it's the end of April, there's plenty of other stuff going on, and the transfer portal can be a little bit overwhelming and just frankly annoying at times. But that's what we're here for. Subscribe to the newsletter. We keep you updated, and we'll update you here. So Nico's little brother, Madden Iamaleava, great, not a great name, but a funny name. We'll go all the way back to at least the beginning of when I became aware of him, right? So he was committed to UCLA out of high school, in high school leading up to the early signing period in December. On signing day, he flips to Arkansas. That's this past signing day. So he's literally just got to campus as an early enrollee at Arkansas. Signs December 2024, enrolls January 2025, and he is now also in the portal. Reportedly, I don't know if it's confirmed, but it seems like he's going to go to UCLA, which, first of all, whatever, it's family stuff, but like, dude, I will never get on board with an 18-year-old showing up to spring practice and then bouncing. Like, give me a break. You can't even give it one season. Give me a break. But the real background here, I mean, again, he didn't get near as much hype as Nico. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. So doesn't have all the attention and press that Nico does. And of course, he's never played down in college football, but he's already decided he needs to transfer somewhere else. But the real thing here, I think, is kind of the NIL ramifications. So, of course, Arkansas was paying him something. How do you think they flipped him from UCLA on the eve or on signing day? So Arkansas had committed whatever they had committed to him. He leaves before playing it down in football for Arkansas. And Hunter Yurachek, the Arkansas athletic director, comes out with a statement yesterday. You can see there, I've spoken with the leadership team at Arkansas Edge, their collective, and express my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward. We appreciate Edge's investment in our student athletes and acknowledge the enforcement of these agreements is vital to our new world of college athletics. We look forward to continued dialogue with all parties involved resolving these matters. So from what I read on this, of course, this is no coincidence. Little Iamaleava hits the portal the next day. Juracek issues this statement, and then I read an article by none other than Pete Nankos, who clearly has an in with the Iamaleava family, despite them thinking he is a, quote, bitch. Nankos came out with a report that Arkansas is pursuing legal action, or maybe not, maybe it hasn't gone to that yet, but is basically enforcing buyouts that they have in their NIL deals with two athletes, one of them being Madden Iamaleava and another one, some other guy with the portal. But according to that report that I read from, again, Pete Nankos at On3, all of Arkansas's NIL deals, and I think most of the country now have buyout clauses in them if you do this. And so obviously Arkansas's collective athletic department, everybody's kind of taking a hard stance here of like, we're going to enforce this and you owe us blank. In the case of Madden Iamaleava, I saw it was $250K in that report. So they're requesting they get paid that money back, which is the first time I think I've seen this. What are your thoughts on buyouts, blah, 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 NIL?
That's a long time coming. I mean, this stuff has been happening for a while now. And like we said at the outset of the show, we've talked about it a lot over the past couple of years. This is the Wild West. And early on in the Wild West, right, there were these worries that, okay, we can't do contracts and we can't, because of employment law, and we can't have them be employees and all this sort of stuff. But then that led to kids taking advantage of it. And there's not a lot of bigger stories that have come out about that, but there have been rumors about this for a long time. As Aggie fans, there was a rumor about Evan Stewart, that Evan Stewart basically took his last large NIL payment and then bam, went into the portal and was at Oregon a couple of weeks later. So he basically cashed out on his last NIL check and then went to Oregon, right? For services that, okay, he was there for a year, but then like we're going into next year, you've got, basically a contract, even though loosely stated, right? A contract. And he takes his payday and runs, right? And this has happened multiple times. We've started to see these things bubble up to the surface, starting with the cornerback who was at Wisconsin and then went to Miami, and Wisconsin started saying, no, we're going to fight back with this because we had a deal and you're reneging on this deal. And so, you can't just take us to the cleaners. That's not how this works. So that was kind of the first shot across the bow. And now we're seeing it play out even more so, and just more of these coming to the surface. This one obviously being with a big spotlight shined on it because of the Iamaleava family and everything that has happened over the course of the last 3 weeks. So I'm with you. I think it's extremely frustrating that kids are doing this and their families. Frankly, I don't know if I would do business with the Iamaleava family, right? Like there's a lot of families like that who are recruits. It's not just them. But after looking at what they've done over the past 3 weeks, tanking everything at Tennessee to now tanking things at Arkansas, kind of taking Arkansas to the cleaners. I heard rumors of $500K. That would surprise me just based on a 3-star recruit, flipping on signing day. Maybe it was a deal in full for $500K for 1 year, advance payment of $250. I don't know. But these collectives had to get smart at some point to put some sort of structure in place to protect themselves, because now we're talking about a lot of money, right? Like, in fact, just the other day, John Talty, reporter for AL.com for a long time, great reporter, wrote the leadership book about Nick Saban. Now he's with CBS Sports. He wrote an article the other day that included Kurt Signetti from Indiana, had a lot of quotes from him about how much money some of these collectives are going to spend on a college football roster for just this season. And the number that came out was $40 million. So we're in the era now of $30 to $40 million rosters when we're talking about, the upper echelon of the Power Four, the Ohio States, right?
Jeez.
The Miamis, the Alabamas, the Texas A&M, like those schools are, and they're doing it before we get to rev sharing. So this may not always be the case, right? But right now they're just spending lucratively because they're going to try to just, flood the roster, take away kids from other schools potentially as well, and just make sure they have the best chance to win this year, because we all know this is a win now sport. So all that to say, there is so much money going into NIL and collectives and going into making these rosters out that at some point it was going to break, because you can't have these kids taking you to the cleaners, asking you for more money or what have you, and then bolting before you get to see the return on investment. Everyone knows if you don't get the return on investment, like the investors are going to stop investing, and you don't see the payout. There's no point in investing if you see that. So it had to happen, and it's starting to bubble to the surface. And I think that schools will get control of this before much more of this happens, because of what we're seeing from Arkansas. They're going to start recouping their money.
I agree. And I think to me, this is, again, just yet another example of the lack of any person or entity being in control, right? This has been left up to the schools, and they are now fighting back. And you have, the athletic director of a sitting, Power 5, whatever, Power 4, but SEC school coming out and saying, we are going to get our money back. Like, we are done with this game. Like, I don't care, whatever. They're not employed. Like, I don't care what, the NCAA has to say about this. Anybody has to say about this. Like, we are putting this in our contracts, and if you don't live up to it, we're getting our money back, which is the right thing to do. I have no problem with that. It's just, again, it exemplifies like where we're at, where you're having to have an athletic director and a collective stand up here because there's no guardrails anywhere else. So they have to take care and protect themselves. And what should be standard operating procedure, or just like obvious business practices that, you sign a contract, you don't fulfill your obligation, then, we are owed for what you did not fulfill. Hasn't been that way. So you have, schools, again, just forced to take this stuff into their own hand and say, all right, yeah, we're done with this. We're done with this game. We're not treating you like a student athlete anymore. Like, this is a business. You owe us money. You did not live up to your end of the bargain or end of the deal. And so, yeah, you're going to have to pay us. And what I'm interested to see is, I would assume, who knows? I would assume that Iamaleava and anybody else in this situation, because they are not alone. I can guarantee you that. This has been made public, but they aren't alone. I actually saw rumors that, if you recall, when Walter Nolan transferred from A&M to Ole Miss, he put out something on social media about, A&M and whatever collectives. And I have no problem with Walter Nolan doing any of that, even as an A&M fan. But I did see rumors going around on A&M Twitter while this Arkansas stuff was breaking, that this is what Walter Nolan was referring to when it came to, when he was talking about, if you're trying to like transfer from A&M and blah, 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 having trouble, like hit me up. Apparently it was about this, at least according to Twitter, where, he left, and A&M, it sounded like, just went back and was like, hey, great, you transferred, you owe us some money here. Cause who knows what it was. And again, I have no problem with Walter Nolan. He kept his mouth shut other than an Instagram story or whatever, and it got handled. But I just bring that up to say that even if that's not the case with Walter Nolan specifically, this is going on all over college football. This is just the most public one, but schools are not going to allow this to happen any longer. And, they're putting it in all their contracts, and they will get their money if you do not, live up to what you said. So sort of just like a business 101.
Yeah. One of the things, it is business 101. But one other thing to mention in this, like, this isn't all on the players, right? There are players and their families who are doing this, but there's the other side of this coin too, and the dark side of NIL, which has happened many times as well, where players get screwed. We've seen that in many different instances. The most glaring was last year, at least in college football. The most glaring was last year with UNLV, when they lost their starting quarterback after a couple games and their starting running back, because they said that they were promised $100,000, over $100,000. and they never saw a dime of it. And so they said, to heck with this, we're out of here.
Yeah.
And that was totally fair on their part to do that. So both of the sides of this coin just speak to, we got to have guardrails. And it seems like they're coming when we get this House settlement, which, it's still not done yet, but we're told in the, coming weeks that we should get some thoughts. And the NCAA did put out today, I put it in the newsletter this morning, or they put out, it was within the last couple of days, maybe it was on Monday, that they're making changes to, I think it was 153 rules. And a lot of them had to do with, some of it was roster limits and little things like that, but other things had to do with money, right? Like you can pay athletes directly now, and you can pay them for their name, image, and likeness. It just does away with all those rules. And so now we know we can do this. It's within the rules, and we can just, circle around. We can have contracts. We can have some structure to all these things so that we stop seeing all of this madness on both sides, whether it's UNLV promising money that they don't have, or whether it's on the other side, which is, players taking schools to the cleaners and never playing it down.
Right.
Or not fulfilling their contract in some sort of way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think is fascinating here, is because, like, we even heard, and we talked about it last week, but you heard rumors of Nico not really doing anything NIL related, which, again, I don't mean to call out Nico, because that was just the most recent or public example. This has happened at every university. I mean, these kids are not, their name, image, and likeness is not being used worth, whatever, $1 million or $2 million that they're getting paid. So but that's just sort of the name of the game. And I just wonder, it's like, can we just call them employees here and pay them and do away with this NIL crud? And just like an NFL guy, it's like, hey, if you want to market yourself and sign a brand deal, go ahead. But we are not involved in that, because we're paying you to play football. And this old song and dance, ridiculous NIL quote payments, none of them are even NIL payments, which is why you're not seeing somebody like Nico get raked over the coals for, he didn't really do his autographs, or he didn't show up to the booster things, because even the school doesn't care, right? If you're playing, you're getting paid your NIL money. If you transfer, then, hey, hold on here, right? Like, we need you to suit up on Saturdays, but nobody cares about the rest of that crap. So just make them employees and get it done. I mean, I don't like it. I don't like any of it. I'll go on the record here and say, I wish they weren't employees. But I understand it. Like, this is where we are. They deserve to get paid. The players deserve a cut of the pie. And the only way to do that is basically take the NFL's model and, morph it to fit college athletics and go from there.
I think that's where we're going. We've talked about it, many times on this show, that we're going towards an NFL model, for better or for worse. And that's just kind of where the sport is. So hopefully, as we get more towards that, we don't lose all of the things that make college football great and why we all love it. And, I on the record, I endorse Josh Pate for college football commissioner. I think he would do a great job. And really just with that, right? Like balancing change and balancing the progression of the sport with all of the pageantry and the history and the tradition and everything that makes college football, and something unique across the world. It's a unique sport across the world. Mm-hmm. And it's unique from the NFL. And, there's a lot of people who are college football fans first, us included, versus the NFL. And I hope it stays that way. I want college football to always be its own unique entity that is different from the NFL. So even as we move to the pro model, I hope that we can balance still, and keep a lot of what makes college football great.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we got about 15 minutes left here. So speaking of something that doesn't really feel yet like the pro model at all, kind of because they use metal bats, but baseball. So SEC baseball is it's been awesome this year, as usual. I mean, we've been touching on it the last few weeks because I think we've talked about it maybe in the newsletter, maybe on the show, but like outside of college football, to me at least, SEC baseball, college baseball is like the most fun environment. And maybe that will change. I mean, SEC basketball is obviously great now, but like you can go to a lot of SEC basketball games and the crowd's like 30% full. Not the case when it comes to the Diamond. All these schools pack it out. The environment's great. It's springtime. Everybody's outside drinking beer, eating peanuts. It's awesome. And we've got like every weekend, it's just chock full of great matchups, right? So this past weekend, Bossman made us a nice graphic here, courtesy of SEC Baseball, which is a great follow on Twitter if you're not following them. But just some of the ones, I guess, to highlight. Georgia getting swept by Vandy was pretty big. Texas sweeping Auburn, very big. A&M taking 2 of 3 from Arkansas and Fayetteville was big. LSU, Alabama, hard-fought series, big, good for LSU to get that series win. Tough for the Tide. And then Kentucky, surprising, and taking 2 from the Vols in Knoxville. If you have any, thoughts on last weekend's series, let me know, or we can kind of get into next weekend because I think I said it. Actually, it's probably just in our run of show, but there's 2 teams this weekend that have the biggest series in like at least their own college baseball regular season history, and that's A&M and Texas. So, any thoughts on last weekend's games? I don't know how much you actually got to sit down and watch, or should we just hop into this coming weekend?
I didn't get to sit down and watch much, but writing I had a little set change again. I'm going to fix that window, everybody. I promise. I will get my set fixed here soon. I just haven't had a chance to do it. But also, it was a cloudy day today, so I thought I was going to be fine. And of course, the sun comes out right as we start the show. So,
right.
But the one thing I would say, and we can bring that graphic back up for me.
Yeah, last weekend.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So Georgia on a little bit of a downward slide right now. They've lost 4 straight. Getting swept at Vandy was a little bit rough, and then A&M stayed hot, which was great. Also, Kentucky taking 2 out of 3 from the Vols in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So the Vols a little bit shaky there of recent. Couple series where you thought they would have had the upper hand and probably should have won, but they didn't. So
yeah, lost home series to A&M and now Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. And then also Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss has had a pretty good year. They've been in and out of the top 15, and South Carolina takes 2 out of 3 from them as well. So
yeah,
those were just a couple of series to highlight, which was interesting. And then we can get into next weekend, which. Big series this weekend. I'm really excited about. I mean, look at it. This is the SEC baseball, of 2025, right? It's just top to bottom, pretty much, except for like Mizzou, is pretty tough. Even like playing Mississippi State. Mississippi State's won like 25, 26 games, so they're going to slouch either. So all the way, pretty much from top to bottom in this conference, you got to bring it every week. And you got number 6 Tennessee going to LSU in Baton Rouge. Against number 7 LSU. That's going to be an awesome series. Another good one versus in Oxford with Vanderbilt heading and playing Mississippi State, playing Ole Miss. But yeah, like you mentioned, the big one is number 1 Texas versus A&M. Not necessarily for the ranked on ranked matchup per se, but everyone knows what A&M was supposed to be at the start of this year, which starting out the year number 1, fell out of the rankings, but of late have really turned it on and won the series against number 1 Tennessee, won the series against number 2 Arkansas. Their bats have been red hot. And then you're going up against Texas, who folks thought it was going to take at least a year for Schlossnagle to get them going and get them into the top 10, top 5, type of thing and contending for the College World Series. That's not the case. The man wasted no time. The man can coach baseball. He's one of the best coaches in baseball. Which is why Texas stole them away from A&M. And it's going to be such a fun series. The first one, the SEC did Texas another favor, gave them the first series against A&M as an SEC opponent in Austin. I think they probably were looking ahead that the vitriol in College Station would probably have been apoplectic. And so I don't know. They gave it to them in Austin, but it's going to be an awesome series to watch. And I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm gonna try and get to a game. I may not be able to this weekend. I live in Austin for those who don't know, but either way, I'm gonna try to catch some on TV as well. So it should be a great series.
Oops. Oh. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, just to take it back, we can get a little personal here as A&M fans. That's probably when Schloss left. That's probably the most upset I've ever been at an individual associated with A&M athletics. Right, just the way it went down. Maybe we have some Texas fans watching, but like A&M is going into the Game 3 in the College World Series finale, and it gets leaked that morning that he's gone because that's just how Texas operates. It just the whole thing. And look, I'm over it now. I mean, I don't like the guy. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. Time heals some wounds. I just that series is going to be so charged up. Especially because from the A&M side, not just the way it happened that he went to the biggest rival, but the team is mostly the same and nobody followed him. So A&M's roster as it's currently made up are all guys that played for him last year, excluding a couple guys that graduated and obviously the freshmen. But like everybody who plays pretty much except for I can't think of his name, but there's a few guys that actually contribute and play that were not around last year that are freshmen, but most of the guys played for Schloss and did not follow him for whatever reason. Obviously, he's a great coach. So until all that happened, they loved the guy. So I'm not reading too much into that other than to say they probably all hate his guts because they stayed at A&M and he went to Texas and they're all still there. It's not 5 years down the road where, nobody even knows the guy. No, everybody knows him, including the head coach who was on his staff, Mike Early. So it's going to be extremely charged up. And, from the Texas angle, I mean, they have a good home field, despite the fact that it's a disgusting turf field, just a complete abomination to baseball, to the SEC, to everything that is holy. But it's a great atmosphere in terms of the crowd. They draw, an awesome crowd and excited to see if you can go. I don't even want to know what the tickets are going to cost because when they used to play that midweek game and alternate between A&M and or College Station and Austin, I mean, those were hot tickets back in the day because we were in different conferences and did not play one another. So a 3-game weekend series, I can't imagine what they're going to go for, how hard they're going to be to get, but I know it will be sold out, standing room only. And just on this note, I don't know if you saw this. I saw this going around Twitter earlier. I don't know how I feel about this as an A&M fan, but A&M got off to such a bad start this year. One of the things that was funny last year, right, when A&M was rolling, obviously, go all the way to the Game 3 of the College World Series, lose by a run. Their team was all over Twitter. They were funny. They were joking around, making fun of each other on Twitter. Well, they shut up, rightfully so, this season. They were not saying a peep. Within the last few weeks, they've started to dabble. Well, 4 different guys have tweeted out, basically the main guys, Hayden Schott, Caden Sorrell, Jace Laviolette, and then Gavin Grahovac, have tweeted out about how excited they are for rivalry weekend this week. And then they have all tagged the Columbia Lions and Penn Quakers because that's where Hayden Schott transferred from, I believe, was Columbia. So they're all really jacked up for the Columbia Penn series this weekend, which I don't know. I found it funny, and I'm kind of glad they're loose going into it. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's just, I want this series bad. I want 2 out of 3 from these guys, especially because, man, nobody can beat Texas right now. They just keep winning.
I mean, they hit a grand slam in the midweek against Texas State to beat them on Tuesday. I mean, they're kind of Teflon right now. I think they've won 6 or 7 straight, like number 1 in the country. Schloss has them playing extremely well. It's going to be an awesome series in Austin. I can't wait to watch it. I do think it's probably a good thing that A&M's a little bit loose going into this one. I mean, look, if you're looking back 3 weeks ago, a month ago, A&M's dead in the water, right? They have nothing. And this series could have been the Barium series, right? Like, Texas sweeps A&M. If Texas sweeps A&M, it's still bad, right now, which is possible. But if we're going back a month ago, A&M doesn't get a series win against Arkansas. They don't get a series win against Tennessee, and we're going into Texas. This is that it could have been a tail between your legs series. Everybody shut up on Twitter. Nobody's playing loose. Everybody knows how bad Aggie fans want it, despite the bad season. And you get swept by Texas and Austin, and it's like Michael Early's job is it's over. Everybody knows it's over, and now we just limp to the finish line, right? But instead, Aggies are loose. The team is loose, and they're excited to go into Austin, and they feel like they've got momentum. I mean, A&M in their midweek just won 13-3. That the bats are hot, they're pitching well, and they're winning games in difficult ways, right? I mean, we saw that in the South Carolina series, so we skipped over that one just because South Carolina wasn't ranked at the time, but 2 grand slams in the bottom of the 9th, right, to win that game and then win that series overall was huge as well. So they're very confident. A&M still has talent to be a top 5, top 10 team. Again, same roster that was in the College World Series last year, and within a run of winning it. So, it should be a really, really good series in Austin. I'm really excited to watch it. One thing that I will give Schloss credit for on your hate for Dish Falk Field, I agree with you. I think that the stadium's cool. I've been to the stadium, but in terms of the field, it's a joke that they have 1980s era Astros turf out there. I know there's issues with, the shade and the sun and all that folks talk about. It's ridiculous that a school of Texas's stature with all the money that they have can't figure that out and make that work. Guaranteed, if they wanted to, they could make it work. And I know, to Schloss's credit, he's trying to get that fixed, and he's trying to get the playing field and the turf and all that stuff potentially go back to grass. I know he's trying to make that happen, which it should have happened many, many years ago. But the fact that he's trying to make that happen is smart. I think that's good for Texas baseball.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, that's enough baseball talk. We'll hit on that more in the newsletter, and then the show next week. I'm sure we'll have some things to say. But let's close it out. We don't have a Muschamp Coach of the Week this week. However, I know you put some stuff together for Lee Corso. The Sunshine Scooter has announced his retirement. So I'll hand the floor to you because you put all these graphics together. So take us home with some good Corso stuff.
We hit it about perfect here. So I kept it as a Muschamp Coach of the Week just because he's Coach Corso at the end of the day, right? The Sunshine Scooter, coached at Indiana and Louisville, coached in college and the pros, I think, for around 28 years or something like that. So he had a long coaching career, maybe it's 20. But it was a long coaching career before he got into TV, and he was one of the best to ever do it. I mean, we grew up with Lee Corso in our living room. I know many of you have watched him for many years. He was on air for, I believe it was I think he started in 1987. So what is that? Almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Almost 40 years.
40 years. Yep.
Almost 40 years. So very impressive. We love Lee Corso here at Biscuits SEC. So I wanted to just play. There's a montage that College Game Day put together of some of his best moments, and then there's 2 moments that I actually adore that they didn't include in their montage that I want to play after. So here's the quick montage from Game Day.
To me, Corso, you're stupid. You always pick the wrong team. Right here. Wrong time. Oh, you want it? Look in.
They found a way to muzzle him. Lee, where are you?
Down here.
Off comes the headset. Wow.
Forget about it.
And as of this moment, the live Bison mascot has been renamed
Corso. Yes.
Oh, it's the live one here. The dog's back.
Hold on tight. That dog is beautiful. That dog is ugly.
Trying to devour Kurt. He's lost his voice and he's lost his mind. Oh my, you got it prop. After this here, you gotta go up and over. Red is dead.
Come here, that doggy.
What a character.
Legend.
Gotta love the guy. He's a legend. So that was the montage the game day put together. They actually did include this clip, which I wasn't aware of until I rewatched it just then, but it's a little bit hard to hear. So here's the first clip that I wanted to play that I always look back and laugh at this one. Excuse the language on it, but this is another good one that I like.
I just love Kirk's face.
Yeah, he can't. Whoa, okay, there's an FCC violation. We're going to get a fine.
Yeah.
The longer clip of that also shows Coach Corso while he's donning the Cougar. His mic is still on, and he says something to the effect of, glad there's a delay. He realized it immediately. He actually did end up having to apologize for that later. ESPN made him send out an apology in hopes of, I think, probably lowering the fine from the FCC.
Yeah.
And then here is the final clip I wanted to play. This is one of my favorites.
Bulldogs.
Yale Bulldogs. Oh, wow.
Not so fast, midget. Not so fast.
Midget.
Yeah, little guy. Hey, not so fast. I go with Harvard. What's the matter?
Not so fast, midget. Just this little kid, man, who's having the time of his life on set, and Lee Corso's just right in his face. Not so fast.
Not so fast, midget. Yeah. I mean, I feel like they Game Day has done a good job of. They've got Saban, Mac. They have so many characters on there now that they've been preparing for this. Yeah. But it's not going to be the same without him. I mean, that guy was. Yeah, like you said, for you and I, like we grew up with him every Saturday watching him. Like he's pretty much just synonymous with college football for me. Just like he, embodied it and entertained everybody and brought a ton of laughter, fun, joy into everybody's living room and college campuses for
without a doubt
a long time.
Yeah, he did. He's the best, well respected around the sport just for being a good man. And it was really cool too to see, while he did struggle on set for the last, 5 or more years since his stroke, and thank God, he's still with us after that. But it was great to see he and Kirk Herbstreit's friendship evolve over that time, and to see, Kirk take care of him basically and make sure that, it would kind of protect him on set a little bit and protect him when he would have, kind of his brain farts, I guess is maybe one way to put it. But it was just great to see their friendship and how close they are and what they meant to each other, because they've worked on set together for a long, long, long time. So he will be on for one more show on August 30th. So the first show of College Game Day of the year, he'll be on for that show. And then after that, he will retire for good. But hopefully we'll see him still around, or see some tweets or something from him. But Lee Corso, absolute legend, and a good must-champ coach of the week.
Definitely, he is a well-deserved award. I'm sure he's proud at home watching that he's getting honored like this by Biscuits and SEC. So with that, I think we will wrap up for the week. Thanks again, y'all, for joining us. Please, if you enjoy what we do or liked this episode, tune in again next week, same time, 7:00 Wednesday night. Like the video, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, everything. It just helps us out and allows us to keep doing what we're doing. And again, below, sign up to the newsletter. We will see y'all tomorrow on SEC After Dark at 9:00 Eastern. And then again, back here next Wednesday with Biscuits and SEC Live. So appreciate y'all tuning in. We're out.
Thanks, everybody.